My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 28 years old, and I used to think the creepiest sound in the forest behind our town was a coyote yipping or an owl screeching at 2 in the morning, not a pack of wolves laughing like drunk men around a campfire. I work nights as the on-call tech and dispatcher at our county emergency communications hub, which means I see all the weird calls first. Lost hikers, drunk hunters, missing dogs, the occasional crank claiming there are lights in the sky. You get numb to it after a while, sitting there in a black hoodie with a faded security logo, dark jeans, steel-toe boots propped under the console as the radios crackle and the fluorescent lights hum. You tell yourself that most bad things have an explanation if you're patient enough to dig for it. That was before the alert, before the new rules for the forest came down, before the wolves started laughing like people we knew. I live in a small place called Halberd's Run, tucked up against a national forest that feels too big for the size of the town, like someone jammed a city's worth of wilderness against 3 streets, a gas station, and a church. My rental is a small 1-bedroom on the edge of the last street before the tree line, cheap because nobody wants to deal with bears tipping over their trash cans in spring. The forest is always there, pressing at the edge of everything. Behind the school, behind the grocery store, behind the dispatch center's parking lot where the asphalt just ends and moss starts. People hunt, hike, camp, get lost, get found. It's just part of life. At least it used to be. The first time I heard it, I thought it was some drunk kids partying too far into the tree line. I'd just gotten off a 12-hour overnight and was standing in my tiny kitchen making stale coffee at 8 in the morning, staring out the back window while the sky did that washed-out gray thing it does here in late October. The forest was a wall of dark trunks and fog, no movement, no wind. Then, clear as anything, I heard laughter drifting through the open window. Not just one voice, several, overlapping, bright and harsh in the cold air. It sounded like a group of guys in their 20s, that too loud hysterical laugh you get when someone tells a joke that isn't actually funny but everyone pretends it is. It went on too long. I remember frowning, wondering who the hell was that deep into the woods that early. We don't get party campers out here much, but as I listened, the cadence of the laughter started to slip. It stopped matching human breathing. There were no words between the bursts, no talking, just laughter. The tone began to bend higher like someone holding a note on a busted instrument. The hair on my arm stood up. I killed the stove, leaned closer to the window, and that's when I heard the howl under it, not separate from the laughter under it. A rising wolf howl buried beneath the sound, like the laughter was riding it. The two noises folded together until I couldn't tell where the howl ended and the human sound began. My stomach lurched. I shut the window so fast I nearly caught my fingers. I told myself it was just the wind, some echo from town, something normal. But I didn't sleep that day. That night at the dispatch center around 1:13 a.m., 3911 calls came in back-to-back from the same road, Ridgeview, the one that winds along the forest on the north side. Different callers, same description. "There's something in the tree line," one guy whispered, voice shaking. "Sounds like a bunch of people laughing, but there's no campfire, no lights. They're too low to the ground. They keep pace with my truck." Another caller, a woman this time, said, "It's wolves, but it's not. They're right at the edge of the high beams. Their mouths are open, but they're not barking, they're giggling." She started crying before she finished the sentence. We dispatched a unit, logged it as possible intoxicated wildlife encounter, the kind of bullshit label you use when you don't have a better box to tick. The deputy checked the road, called back calm as you please. "I got nothing out here but tracks. Looks like a pack moved through, but they're gone now." I thought that was the end of it. I wanted it to be. The emergency alert came 48 hours later. I was on shift again, staring at traffic cams and weather feeds, halfway through a stale vending machine dinner when every monitor in the room glitched, froze, then flooded with red. The tone that followed wasn't our usual county chime. It was lower, vibrating like being inside a subwoofer. The speakers crackled. Then a flat synthetic voice came through from a source I didn't recognize. "Emergency alert. This is a joint message from the Department of Wildlife Control and Federal Oversight Office for Environmental Risk. Residents of Halberds Run and surrounding areas are advised the forest perimeter is under active restriction between 19:00 and 07:00 hours. New safety protocols are in effect. Rule 1. Do not enter the forest after dusk for any reason. Rule 2. If you hear laughter coming from the tree line, do not approach. Do not investigate. Do not attempt to identify the source. Rule 3. If you observe canids vocalizing in patterns resembling human speech or laughter, do not engage. Leave the area immediately and shelter in a secure structure. Further guidance will follow. The map on the monitor lit up our town, the forest, a wide red ring around both. My boss, a guy named Holcomb who'd been with the county forever, came in from the back office white as a sheet. "Kill any non-essential recordings," he snapped. "We're in blackout protocol." I stared at him. "Sir, what the hell is wildlife control doing on a federal override channel?" He wouldn't look at me. "You didn't hear that, Webb. We logged the alert as a severe weather drill and keep our mouths shut." "That wasn't a drill," I said. "We've been getting calls. And you'll keep logging them the way I tell you," he cut in, his eyes flicking briefly to the cameras, like he was afraid someone else was watching. The rest of the night, my hands shook every time the forest cams cycled through. The feeds were grainy, fogged, and more than once. I didn't tell anyone what I saw on those forest cameras that night, mostly because I couldn't prove any of it happened. The recordings wiped themselves every time the feed glitched, like something was overwriting the data the same second it appeared. But I remembered it. Every frame burned into my brain like frostbite. Around 3:12 a.m., the northern treeline feed flickered from static to a perfect image of the forest floor. No sway of branches, no fog distortion, just stillness, too still, like the woods were holding their breath. Then something moved at the bottom edge of the screen, gray fur at first, then a long snout, then two pointed ears rising like a shadow puppet being pulled into frame. A wolf. Normal size, normal posture. But when it lifted its head to the camera, its mouth was already open in a grin far too wide for the structure of a canine skull. The lips stretched back almost to the jaw hinge, in a grotesque mimicry of what a human smile would look like if you peeled it into an animal. For a full second, it didn't move. Then its chest started shaking, not like panting but like laughing, silent at first until the audio crackled, and a sound poured through the speakers that made my entire spine ice over. A young man's laugh, maybe early 20s, cheerful, bright, absolutely wrong. I ripped the headset off so fast it yanked my hair, but the laugh continued, filling the room as the wolf on screen jerked and spasmed like a marionette trying to sync its movements to the sound. Then two more wolves stepped into the frame. Then 5. Then 9. An entire pack, all with those stretched smiles, all shuddering with laughter in a dozen mismatched human voices, male, female, elderly, children, layered in an impossible chorus. The speakers overloaded with static, the screen glitched white, and when the picture came back 2 seconds later, the wolves were gone. Holcomb pretended the feed outage was nothing. "Power surge," he muttered when I confronted him. "Wind knocking lines around. Happens every winter." But his hands were shaking so badly he spilled coffee down his shirt and didn't even notice. I went home at dawn, exhausted and shaking, the sun turning the frost on the pine needles into glittering shards. I thought that would be the end of it for a few hours. I could shower, sleep, pretend life was normal. But as I approached my street, I saw my neighbor, old Mr. Camden, standing in his yard facing the woods. He was deaf in one ear from a war injury, walked with a cane, and always muttered to himself about raccoons getting into his shed. He shouldn't have been out that far into the cold morning, and he definitely shouldn't have been smiling at the forest like that. "Morning," I called, trying to sound casual. He didn't turn, didn't respond. I walked a little closer. "You okay?" Slowly, way too slowly, he turned his head toward me. His jaw was slack at first, then it began to move in short, mechanical jerks like something inside his throat was testing the mechanism before trying words. I stopped walking. Every instinct screamed at me. Then he spoke, and it was not his voice. "They're learning," he said in a smooth young woman's voice I didn't recognize. Not mimicked, perfect. "They're getting better every night." My stomach flipped. "Mr. Camden." His mouth stretched into a smile much too wide, too stiff, the same kind I'd seen on the wolves. Then in his normal voice he croaked, "Run!" His eyes rolled back. He collapsed into the frozen grass. I sprinted to him, but he was already breathing normally, snoring even like he'd just passed out. When paramedics arrived, they chalked it up to low blood sugar and exhaustion. Nobody believed my story about the voice, the smile, the warning. Of course they didn't. I barely believed it myself. That night right before shift, the forest issued its second warning. Not officially. There were no alerts, no messages, no announcements. But at 6:41 p.m., as the sun dipped behind the ridge, every dog in town started howling at once. Not barking, howling, long, mournful, rising notes like something ancient moving under the earth had signaled them. Then the howls choked off in unison, like someone pressed mute on the whole town. My phone buzzed with a county notification, perimeter lockdown active. Do not enter wooded areas. Do not investigate auditory anomalies. And below that in a smaller, more hurried font, do not respond to any form of laughter. My skin crawled. When I got to the dispatch center, the parking lot was half empty. 2 people had called out, citing sickness. Holcomb was pacing by the back wall, pale and sweating, a radio clutched tight to his chest. "We're getting multiple reports," he said the second I walked in. "They're on the move tonight. The wolves," his jaw tightened. "They're not wolves anymore." The radio crackled before I could ask what he meant. A deputy's voice whispered through, ragged with fear. "Dispatch, I don't know what I've got. Something S following the patrol car along Timberline Road. Not running, just pacing us. In and out of the trees. I can see the Ishin in the mirror." "Copy Unit 12, Holcomb said, trying to steady his voice. "Can you describe it?" The deputy gagged, breath shaking. "It's laughing, sir, but it's my laugh." My blood turned to ice. Something brushed the tree line on the center feed. A figure too low to the ground to be human, too long to be any animal I recognized, crawling out into the brush with its mouth already stretched wide. The laughter began again, this time female, terrified, pleading. "Help me," it giggled. "Help me, please." And then the rest of the pack stepped into view. I knew then that the forest wasn't warning us anymore. It was practicing. The pack didn't charge toward the camera or howl or bare their teeth like normal predators. Instead, they froze in perfect unison the moment they stepped fully into the clearing, each elongated body half-crouched, half-twisted as though caught mid-gesture in some grotesque pantomime. Their stretched, skinless smiles glistened in the cold, as if wet with something thicker than saliva, and every single one of them tilted its head at the same slow, creaking angle, listening, waiting, calculating. The forest feed zoomed slightly on its own, the autofocus sharpening until I could make out the fine details of their hides. Not fur, but something more like matted strands of hair fused with cracked gray hide, twitching with little ripples under the surface like tiny muscles operating independently. Then the laughter started. Not loud this time, not wild like before, but soft and deliberate, like a group of people trying to whisper laugh in a church pew. Each creature opened its mouth wider and wider, far past the point of breaking, revealing rows of teeth shaped more like human incisors mixed with shards of bone. And every laugh was stolen. Some were laughs I'd heard on the earlier feed, some were voices I recognized from town, and some sounded like voices I knew were dead. Holcomb swore under his breath and backed away from the monitors as if distance offered protection. "They never come this close," he whispered. "Not to the clearing feeds, not unless they want us to see." My heart hammered so violently I felt it in my teeth. "What are they doing?" Holcomb's face tightened. "Scouting." The radio crackled again before I could process that. This time it was Unit 12, breathing hard enough that the microphone clipped. "It's following Jesus. It's right beside us. I can't see it in the headlights, but when we pass a reflective sign, I see its eyes in the shine, and it keeps laughing, keeps using my mother's laugh." The deputy made a sound between a sob and a scream. "My mother died in 9. Holcomb grabbed the radio. "Unit 12, do not stop the vehicle. Keep driving and do not make eye contact." A sharp squeal cut him off. Metal scraping asphalt, the deputy crying out, "Silence." Then a soft, rhythmic tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Like fingers on glass. I leaned closer to the speaker despite every instinct screaming not to. The tapping grew louder, then paused. A voice, smooth, calm, and horribly cheerful, filled the room. "Let me in, buddy. Roads are dangerous tonight." It was the deputy's own voice, perfectly mimicked, perfectly wrong. I slapped my hand over my mouth as Holcomb stumbled backward, knocking over a stack of reports. The tapping continued, followed by a lazy chuckle, one that definitely wasn't human anymore, stretched and distorted like a laugh forced through a broken whistle. Then came a shriek, abrupt and violent like metal being torn apart. The feed died. The radio went dead. I didn't realize I was shaking until my headset slid crooked on my ear. Holcomb pulled up the roadside camera near Timberline, his fingers trembling so badly he kept missing the keys. When it finally loaded, the patrol car sat half across the road, headlights blasting into a ditch. The driver's side door hung open. No sign of the deputy, no blood, nothing, just drag marks leading into the tree line, long, looping streaks like someone had been pulled backward while laughing. "We need to shut down the roads," I said. "We need to call the county, the state, hell, call the National Guard." Holcomb didn't answer. He wasn't looking at the Timberline feed anymore. He was staring at the center monitor. The wolves had moved. They were closer now, so much closer that their heads filled most of the screen. One pressed its snout against the camera, fogging the lens with hot breath that smelled of rot and something sweet. Another creature behind it let out a giggle in a soft, childlike voice. A voice I knew. My throat closed. "Holcomb, rewind that, just that voice." He hesitated, then scrubbed back 5 seconds and hit play. The giggle came again, bright and unmistakable. "My niece, Ellie, she died at age 7. Her laugh was burned into my memory." I staggered back from the monitors, bile rising in my throat. How are they getting voices from? "They don't need the person alive," Holcomb muttered. "Just the echo, emotional residue. Anything they can imitate, they will. They're baiting you." "Why me?" For the first time that night, Holcomb looked directly at me, and there was something like guilt behind the terror in his eyes. "Because you've been hearing them longest." "What does that mean?" There's a reason you were assigned to the night shift." His jaw clenched as he searched for the words. "Something followed you back from that rescue operation last winter, the one near the canyon." My stomach dropped. "The missing hikers," he nodded. "Your report said you heard laughter in the snowstorm. Everyone assumed you were disoriented, but the creatures didn't show up around Timberline until after that incident." I stared at him, numb. "You think I led them here?" "Not intentionally. But the forest remembers voices, Marcus. It remembers you, and now it wants you back." A piercing, alert tone shrieked through the control room. We both jumped. It wasn't the radio, it wasn't the security system. It was the internal building alarm, the one that only triggered when something crossed the perimeter fence. The display flashed red. "Motion detected, northwest gate, unidentified size." Holcomb rushed to the gate feed. I followed, my legs unsteady. The camera loaded in a stutter of static. Then the picture sharpened, and I stopped breathing. Standing beneath the security light was a single wolf. No, not a wolf anymore, but a tall, emaciated creature balanced on half-bent limbs like a marionette learning to walk upright. Its mouth hung open in a quivering, impossible smile. And when it saw me through the camera, its eyes widened, and it laughed in my voice. The creature's laugh, my laugh, echoed out of the speakers with a warped metallic ring, like it had been pulled through a dying radio signal before reaching us, and I staggered backward so hard I slammed into the desk behind me. Hearing your own voice from something that shouldn't even be able to speak does something to you, something cold and chemical, like adrenaline turning instantly to ice in your veins. Holcomb lunged for the security controls, fingers shaking as he tried to switch cameras, but the thing outside the gate moved faster than the feed could adjust. One moment it was directly under the lamp, the next it dropped to all fours with a sickening joint pop and scuttled out of frame in a blur of twisted limbs and scraping claws. "It's inside the perimeter," Holcomb whispered, terror flattening his voice. "It shouldn't be able to cross the fence." A sharp metallic bang cut him off. Then another. A rapid series of them, like something enormous running its claws across the storage containers stacked behind the station. The building groaned. A vent rattled overhead. Somewhere near the fuel shed, a laugh, not mine this time, but something deeper, rumbling like a grown man laughing underwater, rolled across the compound. My legs moved on instinct before my brain caught up. I grabbed the emergency shotgun mounted beside the door. Holcomb grabbed my arm. "No, you open that door and you're dead in seconds. They're faster in the dark. So what, we just sit here and wait for them to break in?" His eyes darted around the room, frantic but calculating. "There's another option, the generator bunker. That's underground." "Exactly, reinforced concrete, narrow entrance, only one way in if we can get there before they surround the station." The lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then fully died, plunging the control room into near-total darkness except for the emergency battery glow pulsing from the monitors. Every screen went black. Each one flickered back on, not with camera feeds but with a single image repeated across all 8 monitors. A shape in the tree line, tall, wrong, smiling, leaning slowly toward the lens as if trying to crawl inside it. And then, in a chorus that shook the air, all 8 speakers began laughing at once, in dozens of voices, old men, young men, boys, strangers, and layered beneath them all faint but unmistakable Ellie, my dead niece. Something broke inside me. I ripped the headset from the console, grabbed Holcomb by the jacket, and hauled him toward the back hallway. "Move, now." The emergency backup lights flickered on in blood-red beams, stretching monstrous shadows across the corridor. Our footsteps echoed too loud, too exposed. I forced myself to breathe quietly, evenly, but every instinct screamed that something was right behind us. Halfway down the hallway, a ventilation grate above us pinged. Something scraped inside the ductwork, light tapping like claws brushing sheet metal. Then a familiar voice drifted through the vents, soft, cheerful, perfectly mimicked. My voice. "Marcus, why are you running?" Holcomb's hand clamped over my shoulder, steadying me as my knees buckled. "Don't listen," he whispered. "They use your own thoughts against you." "Then why does it sound like me?" "Because they only need one good listen." A screech of tearing metal erupted from above. The duct buckled outward. We sprinted the final distance to the bunker door, Holcomb fumbling the key from his shaking hand before finally shoving it into the lock. He yanked the heavy steel door open, motioned me inside, and slammed it shut the second he entered. The mechanical wheel groaned as he spun it into place, sealing us underground. For a moment, just a moment, the silence felt like air after drowning. The bunker was dim, lit only by small orange indicators from the backup generator interfaces. Pipes ran along the ceiling. Concrete walls closed around us like a tomb, but at least the laughing had stopped, until it hadn't. A faint sound, like a knuckle softly tapping metal, echoed down through the ventilation shaft that led from the surface. Tap. Tap, tap. The sound was patient, testing, probing the structure. Then a voice drifted down, this time not mine, not Ellie's, but Holcomb's, perfectly captured, smooth as a recording. "Marcus, open the door for me. I hurt my leg. I need you to let me in." Holcomb's face drained of all color. "Don't you dare move," he whispered. "It's just copying. It doesn't know which of us is which yet." A deep rumbling laugh followed, shaking dust from the ceiling. Then more footsteps, several sets circling the bunker above us, sniffing, scraping, waiting. Holcomb slumped against the generator panel, hands trembling so violently he couldn't steady them. This wasn't supposed to happen. They're adapting. They're learning faster than before. "Learning what?" He swallowed. "Us." The laughter outside deepened, growing layered and distorted until it vibrated through the concrete. Then something slammed into the bunker door hard enough to rattle the frame. Dust rained down. Another impact, then another. Holcomb's breath hitched. "They're not trying to break in," he whispered. "They're trying to weaken the steel. They've never done that before." "Why now?" He stared at me like he already knew the answer. "Because they want you, Marcus. They've been following your voice since winter. They know you can hear them more clearly than others. They think you belong to them." My stomach twisted. "So what happens when they get in?" Holcomb didn't look away from the shaking door. "They won't kill us. They'll take us, wear us, walk out of this bunker laughing in our voices." Another slam cracked the concrete frame. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. "Then what do we do?" Holcomb closed his eyes, exhaled. "We fight or we run." "Run where?" This time he opened his eyes with a clarity that terrified me more than anything outside the door. "Back into the forest." "Are you insane? That's where they are." "Exactly. They won't expect it." Another monstrous impact boomed overhead as though something gigantic had leapt directly onto the bunker roof. Hairline cracks zipped through the ceiling. Dust billowed. We were out of time. Holcomb grabbed my arm. Listen to me, if we stay, they'll wear us. If we escape through the emergency tunnel and hit the tree line, we might lose them long enough to reach the old ranger tower. Radios still work up there. And if they trap us in the forest, Holcomb squeezed my arm, eyes burning. Then we die ourselves. Not as something wearing our skin. The door buckled inward. A hand, long, gray, too many angles poked through the gap, feeling along the steel like a blind man searching for a heartbeat. Holcomb pulled me toward the tunnel hatch. Marcus, it's now or never. Then the hand on the door curled its broken fingers and laughed in my voice again. The emergency tunnel was nothing more than a narrow concrete throat leading straight into the earth, barely wide enough for one person at a time. And as Holcomb shoved me down the ladder first, the bunker door behind us groaned under the force of another impact. Louder, sharper, metal deforming in a way that made my bones vibrate. My boots hit the tunnel floor, and I didn't wait for Holcomb. I just started running, hunched low, air burning cold in my lungs as the muffled sound of laughter seeped through the concrete above us like water dripping through soil. The tunnel sloped downward, colder with every step, stale air scraping my throat as I sprinted through the darkness lit only by dim red bulbs, each one flickering like they were dying of shock. Behind me, Holcomb's boots hammered the floor, his breath ragged and fast. Then above us, a loud metallic whine echoed through the bunker structure. The door was being torn free. "Marcus, faster," Holcomb hissed. "Once they get in, they'll follow the sound." My legs screamed, but adrenaline drowned everything else. The tunnel was maybe 60 yards long. It felt like miles. The red lights dimmed again, and in the darkness between flickers I heard it, a voice behind us, my voice. "Holcomb, he's slowing down. Don't leave him." Holcomb stumbled but didn't stop. "Ignore it," he gasped. "It can't fit down here, not yet." Not yet, that phrase stuck like a bone splinter. We reached the hatch at the tunnel's far end, a small steel door built into the hillside, camouflaged under roots and dirt. Holcomb spun the wheel as fast as he could. Something above us slammed into the bunker again, shaking dust from the tunnel's ceiling. I could swear the concrete flexed. "Open it," I hissed. "Open it, open it." The wheel clanked, the lock disengaged, and frigid night air rushed into the tunnel. Holcomb shoved me out first into the forest darkness. The moon was a thin silver knife overhead, barely lighting the trees, but it was enough to see everything around us too clearly. The snow on the pine boughs trembled like something was brushing past them. The tree line itself seemed to shift, as if the forest leaned closer to listen. "Go," Holcomb whispered. "Run silent, do not speak." They listened through sound more than sight. We ran into the tree line, breath held, footsteps softened by snow. Behind us, the hatch slammed open fully as Holcomb secured it, but the moment it latched, something enormous landed on it. The steel dented inward. A thin crack formed. Holcomb's face went white. We ran. Branches whipped my arms. Frozen air stabbed my lungs. Somewhere far behind us, a howl rose. No, not a howl. A laugh stretched into a howl, human tones bleeding into animal screams until it became something that didn't belong to any throat of this world. Another answer rose from the west forest. And another. They were triangulating us. "Holcomb," I whispered, unable to stop myself. "They're hurting us." "I know," he whispered back. "Just keep running there." Ahead, silhouetted on a ridge, stood the old ranger tower, wooden, tall, half-rotten, but still upright. Salvation or death depending on whether the rusted stairs collapsed beneath our weight. We scrambled up the slope, boots slipping on ice. A shape darted through the trees ahead, too fast to see clearly, only the afterimage of something tall with backward bent limbs and a smile that glowed faintly in the dark like exposed bone. Holcomb grabbed my jacket and yanked me behind a fallen trunk just as the creature turned its head sharply, sniffing the air. Its neck stretched too far. Bones cracked like wet sticks. It giggled, softly, like a toddler, using Ellie's laugh. My heart nearly stopped. The creature's head twisted, listening, searching. Then it scuttled away in sharp, jerking motions, disappearing between the pines without disturbing a single branch. We waited until the forest was silent again, silent except for the distant echo of laughter rolling through the night like thunder. Holcomb grabbed my shoulder. "Marcus, listen to me. Once we reach the tower, you get to the radio. Call anyone who will listen. Tell them containment has failed. We're not abandoning this place. We abandoned it the second they learned how to breach steel. Now run." We sprinted the last stretch to the tower. The stairs creaked violently but held. At the top, the old radio system sat under a tarp, dust-covered but intact. I ripped the tarp off, flipped switches, spun dials. The machine whined, sputtered, and came alive. Holcomb guarded the stairs with the shotgun, scanning the tree line with shaking hands. I held down the transmit key. This is Marcus Webb Timberline Operations. Multiple entities breaching containment. They're intelligent, mimicry-based, humanoid wolf hybrids. We need immediate, the radio cut to static. Then a voice responded through the speaker. Not a dispatch voice, not human at all, it laughed first. Then spoke, "We hear you, Marcus." I dropped the handset like it burned me. Holcomb spun toward me, eyes wide. "Get back from the radio." "They're in the frequency," I said, voice cracking. "They're inside the signal." A loud crack shook the entire tower. The wood splintered. Something climbed the stairs slowly, scraping each rung with long claws as if savoring the climb. Holcomb aimed the shotgun down the stairwell. "Marcus, get ready." I backed up until my spine hit the tower wall. Another clawed hand grabbed the railing, then another. Their smiles appeared first, glowing white arcs in the dark. Holcomb fired. The blast echoed across the forest like a dying thunderclap. One creature shrieked, not in pain but delight, as if the sound itself was a gift. More climbed. Dozens. Howers shook under their weight. "Holcomb, we have to jump. If we jump, we break our legs. If we stay, they'll wear us." The stairs cracked. One creature lunged through the gap in the boards, its jaw opening wider than its ribcage. I grabbed Holcomb's arm and pulled. "Jump!" The tower collapsed behind us as we leapt into the snow, rolling hard down the ridge. My vision blurred. Holcomb screamed, cut short as something dragged him sideways into the dark. I scrambled to my feet, clawing through snow, lungs tearing. "Holcomb?" No answer. Only laughter, his laughter echoing from multiple directions. They'd taken him in seconds. I ran. I didn't stop until the sky lightened with the first smear of dawn, and even then I didn't stop. I stumbled out of the forest hours later, collapsing on the highway as a passing plow truck skidded to a stop beside me. They took me to a hospital. Then federal agents arrived. They interviewed me for days, asking the same questions over and over. I told them everything. They told me the timberline facility had burned to the ground. They told me there were no bodies. They told me the forest was empty. They told me the wolves in this region do not laugh. 6 months have passed since that night. I moved 3 states away. New job, new apartment, new routine. But every night between 2 and 3 a.m. I hear a sound drifting through the vents of my building. Soft tapping, slow giggling, sometimes a voice whispering my name in my exact tone. They're still laughing. And they're getting closer.